Getting that URL is important because people, it's a race sometimes to get the really good ones. Now, that's not to say that you have to get the exact website name you want. For example, my company is pitchperfectmarketing.com. Ideally, I wanted www.pitchperfectmarketing.com, right? But it was taken by a company in Los Angeles. So, any ideas on what I took as an alternative? You could do right, like .net or .biz. Does anyone have a .biz URL for their company? Okay, I had a person in this last class at the Northern Campus who had a .biz for his candy fund. But he's right. What I did was change it, not the ending, to like something like .net, which you can do, but I just put dashes between the words. And I found pitch-perfect-marketing.com. Now, granted, that's not perfect or ideal, but truth be told, most people don't like type in the URL name into the search bar anymore to find a company. If I'm looking for, a local veterinarian in Cary, I'm not going to enter caryveterinarian.com and hope for the best. What am I going to do if I'm looking for a veterinarian? Yeah, I'm going to search in Google for it. So the name is important, but don't worry if it's not exactly what you want. This service, whois.net, you can go to this site and search for names and look for the names you're looking for. Some candidates for that name. A lot of companies offer this search feature, like GoDaddy has exactly a search feature, so you can search what domain names are out there and which ones are reserved. So the key is, and I'll talk about this in a moment, is getting that name as quickly as you can. Now, the next step we're going to talk about is hosting. And the easy part of this is, a lot of times when you get your hosting, the hosting company will get the domain name for you. You just tell them what it is, and they put those pieces together for you. Some people like to do it, like I have a friend who taught me professional speaking, her name is Cher, and she went out to GoDaddy and got her own domain names. She got like 6 of them. She wanted all these different flavors of her website's address. So in case anyone typed it in any form, they would still find her. That's kind of advanced. The key is find the site and the name that you want and nail it down. This is just one of the sites. GoDaddy's another. Has anyone ever searched on any other sites to find domain names?
I mean, a lot of them will offer that. Wix, I think. I'm not sure that's what I'm considering.
I used Hover, but it wasn't really a very good experience because that's all they had was the domain name. And it kind of got a little.
Yeah.
And then it was something to do with 2cow or something like that. So when I had any trouble,
Yeah.
I had to call Canada. So.
Right, you call Canada. Yeah, a lot of the services, the hosting companies it's in their best interest to have a little search engine there for you to search for website address names. Now, it's important to do that, but what's next? And let's talk about that. The next step after getting the name, and that is identifying which one you want and whether it's available. Now, if it's not available, you can look at the expiration date for the domain, and sometimes the person or company that has it, their company may go out of business and they'll release it, and then it's available. So keep your eye on that too. You can actually find out when that's available. Okay, what's next though? What do you think after you have that name down? What's next, you think? You guys already said it. Hosting, thank you. Yes, getting that hosting, for those of you who are not familiar, and we may have a variety of different kind of experiences with web stuff, but hosting is think of it like your parking space on the web. You're reserving your little slice of the internet for you to put your website on. And most of the time, it's not very expensive. So does anyone have a hosting account right now for the website? Okay. How much, if I may ask, how much does it cost per year?
It's
$25 a month, okay. Yeah, something like that. $300 for years? Per year, okay. So $25 a month, $300 a year. That's kind of average. Yeah, you can get them for less than that. You can get them for more than that. But that's kind of a good range you guys were mentioning. It's not overly expensive, but what you're doing is you're reserving that little slice of the internet where you're going to put your website for the next year. You don't own that site, that little slice of their server somewhere in Arizona or New York, but you're renting that space on their server for a year or 5 years, however long you want it. But it's important to go ahead and get that service in place, because you're going to place your website on that hosting account. This is probably the first step that people start to wonder, gee, I could make a mistake. I shouldn't do this. I need professional help. I need a company to step me through this. And the answer is you really don't. People have been putting websites together for 20, 30 years now. So there's many books out there to step you through it. Google has lots of stuff that you can just search on. Buying your first hosting account. I happen to have a list of some of the ones I like. 1&1 Web Hosting is a good candidate. They offer good hosting. My personal favorite is One World Hosting. I've been using them. I resell their hosting accounts. In other words, I have clients. I don't take on any new clients, but my existing clients, when they get my services, I reserve a hosting account through this company. I highly recommend One World Hosting. And you really want a hosting account a company that's been around a while, because the worst thing that can happen, and this happened to me about 10 years ago, I had like 11 of my clients' hosting accounts with this company in Canada, and the company went under. And I had like 11 of my clients' accounts with a company that had gone bankrupt. So I was scrambling to get my accounts over to another company, which ended up being One World Hosting, because when I searched on the web, they were one of the top 10 hosting companies in the world. So you can look and find your own. GoDaddy is a big player in the hosting space. Don't they have ads on TV? You see them in magazines. I mean, they have a huge marketing budget. They're a good candidate as well. So once you go to these sites, they're going to give you these different levels or costs for your hosting account. Some hosting accounts are like $80 a year. And then they even throw in a free domain name for the first year, which is great, right? And generally, for those of you who have smaller websites, or you don't need it to do all kinds of crazy e-commerce and things like that, it doesn't need to have a lot of back-end database programming and real advanced stuff, then a $100 hosting account is usually just fine. So don't think you have to lay out like $300, $400, $500, $600 for a hosting account. Just do a little research. These are 3 of my favorites, and like I said, there's a lot more out there. Any questions on hosting accounts? Yeah.
So how easy is it to change the hosting account, the hosting provider? What steps are needed to go from one to the other?
Great question. Yeah. Has anyone ever had to do that? Change their hosting account? Yeah. It can be challenging, but generally, if you contact the new hosting company, and basically it's in their interest to make it as smooth as possible to get you as a customer into their client, bin, as it were. So there is a few steps, but they're really not that hard. Essentially, what you have to do is, since you have a slice of the web as your hosting account, so you had your old hosting account here and they were charging you like $600 a year, and you're like, forget that. I found another one for $180. Well, the company for $180, all they really have to do is your URL, your domain name, has to stop pointing to that old company's hosting account and needs to point to your new hosting account. That's essentially what needs to occur. Now, of course, you have to then take your files and move them to this new parking space on the web. But that
Do you have to build a web page from scratch when you do that? Or?
No, well, not typically. This is where now we're getting into web development, right? Because it depends on if the hosting company built your website for you, or they had like a little program that helped you kind of build a website using their hosting account. Then those are a little harder because you're essentially kind of locked into how they built your website for you. And I'll get into this a little later. So that can be a wrinkle that you have to deal with. But the fact that you can move to another hosting account is a great question. You can do that. You can save money if you feel like your hosting account is either overpriced, or what would be the worst thing to happen to your hosting account for your website, do you think, besides it being pricey? Somebody hack it?
Mine just went down.
There you go. His just went down. If you're with a hosting company and suddenly on a Sunday afternoon your website is down, you can't get to it, the rest of the web's fine, That's an example of a hosting company that really doesn't have their act together, and their servers aren't working or their backups aren't working. These three companies, I have never had a problem with this kind of hosting. Great support. I actually get people on the phone when I call them. It's an amazing refreshing thing.
Sound like a commercial.
Right, that's right. I should be selling their services, yeah, and getting a little cut of the money, but I really do respect the company. GoDaddy 1&1 is also great. So we'll talk about this, but that's the domain name, your website address, and your parking space on the web are the first things you need to get. Okay. Question? Yeah.
The domain name, how important is the domain name to say what you do? Like, for example, Amazon doesn't say shopping mall or anything like that. Or Apple doesn't say applecomputers.com, it's apple.com, right?
You're right.
So, is it important to include what you do in that domain name or give a hint?
Anyone want to take a shot at that? Is it important that what your company's about in some way shows up in that name?
Yes.
Says yes.
What I ran into was
Yes,
you
sir.
want to pick something that, if you have a Facebook page, and they all have the same, like you want to think about brand image. So if you use your name, like I'm a photographer, James Murray Photography, well, my website was never forgettable. Now I've got James Murray Photography, so it's a little bit like that.
So he used his name, right, and the word photography. So there's two hints. He's a guy, not like a huge corporation, and he does photography. So in general, yes, I say if you can put the name of the company in the domain name, and what you do, that's great. Like Kaufman Web Design, that was the name of my company, and my URL was kaufmanwebdesign.net, was my first URL. So yes, is it essential? No. If you have a name of your company like Acme.com or Wackadilly.net or something, and you just think that's the coolest name, and you call your company that, really, think about it this way. People, when they see the URL in advertising and all, it's memorable. If you did a good job of getting people to understand what you do in other ways, they're going to come to your website. But in general, I would call your website name, your website URL, what your company is, what its name is. So yeah, that's just easy because when they see it, they know exactly what your company is. But domain names, the names themselves, I have to say, after doing this for like 20 years, they're really not that critical that they're, specifically exactly right. All they are names for people to get to the website. Once they're on the website, that's when your real work begins. Because you've got to convince them to buy your services, to buy your products, right? That's the real challenge. So, but great question, yes. So what's missing now? Question, yeah.
So what if you're at the point where you're just thinking about starting a business, you don't have a name yet, and you're trying to think, what name can I get that's unique enough that's not like somebody else's? I mean, do you think that way when you're just coming up with the name of your company? Like, if I Google something and I get all these hits that are similar to the name I was thinking about, do I say, no, that's not a good one, good
No.
name for my company?
No, don't let other names and where they show up in search engine rankings affect your decision at all.
Okay.
Just get as close to your website, your company's name as you possibly can. If you can't find exactly like acmeconsulting.com, that's already taken, go for acme-consulting. If that's taken, go acmeconsulting-company.com or corp.com. You essentially just want to make sure you get that name in there. Or yeah, you can even put something like LLC, just so that you can get a domain name that's close. Okay, now the next step is the real work, and that is getting the actual website, building it. Anyone here currently have a website? Okay, like 5, 6 people. There's a variety of ways that you can build your website. There used to be just really one way, is you had to learn HTML back in the 90s, or you had to have someone do it for you. And that's how I learned, is I just learned how to use the software and built it with HTML. Has anyone heard of HTML? It's the language that makes websites run. It's the stuff behind the scenes that makes the colors and graphics and all work. Nowadays, it's much easier to get a website built. You can build a website based on HTML, which is the code, and use software like Dreamweaver. That's a software package that you can build websites with. You can build it yourself, or you can hire someone to build it for you. Now, what choice what avenue you go down depends a lot on your time and your budget. So let's talk about this. If you have a budget and you don't have a lot of time to be messing around with building a website yourself, you can hire like a local developer, maybe someone in the Raleigh-Durham area. There's a number of good companies in the Triangle that will gladly make a website for you. Are they pricey? See some people nodding. Yeah, they can be pricey. What do you think I mean by pricey? Anyone know what a typical website costs start to finish for a website company in Raleigh that would charge you? Any ideas?
I'm gonna take a guess
Yeah.
based on my friends' businesses and their websites, 5,000.
That's a good guess. It's right in the middle of the range. I would say between $3,000 and $9,000 you're going to pay for a company to build you, and I don't mean just a basic website. I mean a professional representation of your company online. One that when I go to it and I fire it up, the first 3 seconds I see it, this company means business. This looks really sharp. Colors are good. I'm not confused where to go. I know what they do. That's a real professional website. And they cost about in that range. People start to grimace a little bit when I say that, because a lot of times, and I was there too, I didn't have like $6,000 to throw into a website for a designer to do. I mean, I was just a startup company. It was like a side business when I was doing tech writing. So I didn't have the budget. But a lot of companies, they'll make that a line item in their budget. Maybe if they get a small business loan, they take $5,000 of that and they say, this is for the website. You can do that. If you decide to do a local designer, I recommend local. Again, because when there's a problem or a question, it sure is nice to call them up or sit down at Starbucks or Wendy's or somewhere and ask them what's going on. Can you explain why this works this way? Instead of a call where someone's 4 hours difference in their time zone and maybe there's a bit of a language barrier, for example. And that can happen. I always recommend local. If you decide to go this route, and it's an option for a lot of them, what I do is I'll do a search on the web, and then I'll start contacting these companies. And I'll either look at their portfolio on their website. Web designers always have a portfolio. They want to show you what they've done. And then I'll contact their recent past clients. I'll ask them, can I have the phone number or email of 3 of your last clients you've had in the last 2 years? They should be happy to give you that information, because their clients should be happy. Plus, it gives you a fresh look at how they did without them, right, convincing you they're great, right? So it's like a referral. Highly recommend doing that, because I've had so many people in this class tell me that they hired someone who said, we can build your website for $499. Ugh. Sounds really good, right? But then when they got into it, it wasn't that good. They had difficulty communicating. There were other fees that they hadn't said. And they ended up having to pay more money, and it took longer than they thought. It's that old adage, if it seems too good to be true, probably is, right? That'll happen when we talk about search engine marketing in a moment as well. So if you want to have someone do it for you, it's definitely an option. It's probably going to cost in that range. Now, if you know someone who did a website for a friend or another company and they're a little less than that, that's fine. As long as you know that their track record is a good one and that you trust them. The second is to build it yourself. Question?
Some students, easy state for students